I've got my top 3 selections for the New Orleans Saints in this year's 2024 NFL mock draft in the first round. And number 1 is not an offensive tackle. We got all of that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a senior writer and reporter over at Saints News Network. And on today's episode, we're taking a little bit of a break from the wide zone breakdown because we want to get back to the NFL draft. And I know you want us to be focused on the NFL draft here. So let's take a look at the top 3 offensive linemen that specifically fit that wide zone scheme, the top 3 wide receivers that fit the new Saints offense as well. And of course, we're going to lead it all off with my cumulative top 3 for the New Orleans Saints at pick 14 in the NFL draft. And number 1 is not an offensive lineman. We got all that and much more coming up for you on today's episode. And we appreciate you very much, as always, for making us your first listen of the day and being an everydayer here on the Locked On Saints podcast, proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, I will admit it, I do have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now on the App Store or Google Play. So I wanted to get back to the NFL draft here. I was doing a lot of wide zone conversation. I will continue the wide zone conversation after the draft, but you know what? The draft is a week away. The wide zone stuff wasn't doing great here on the show, for being honest. And so I decided, you know what? Let's pivot. Let's get to what the people want, which is, of course, the NFL draft. So I wanted to go over and just kind of reset everything and look at the NFL draft with some fresh eyes here. 1 week before it kicks off, 1 week before the New Orleans Saints are on the clock at pick 14, at least we think they'll be on the clock at 14. We'll see what happens. With my top 3 selections for the New Orleans Saints at pick 14. So I want to break it all down, and I want to start off with number 1 right here, which is not an offensive tackle. Everybody and their mama expects the New Orleans Saints to draft an offensive tackle. I expect them to draft an offensive tackle. My mama expects them to draft an offensive tackle. Shout out to you, mama. But the first thing that I wanted to look at, or the first prospect that I want to look at, is actually the guy that I think, if he's on the board at 14, he's the best player in the draft. He's the best player on the board at that time. He's not the best player in the draft. Best player in the draft is probably Marvin Harrison Jr., the wide receiver out of Ohio State, followed probably pretty closely by the other wide receivers before you get to Caleb Williams, but that might be a controversial opinion. So my number 1 guy, in terms of who might realistically be available for the New Orleans Saints at 14, is Alabama defensive end Dallas Turner. Now, some of you hear that name, hear me say that, and you go, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense, because I've kind of talked about it here on the show before. But like I said, I want to look at it all in fresh eyes. For me, if Dallas Turner is on the board at 14, and in case you missed it, I did a mock draft Monday a couple weeks ago where it wasn't just me doing a mock draft. It wasn't just a computer doing a mock draft. It was a bunch of insiders, writers doing a mock draft. And at 14, I was able to take Dallas Turner. And the reason why I like Dallas Turner is because he's different. He is and would be, under most circumstances, the best player available on the board if he's available at 14, unless there is some inexplicable tumble, right? Inexplicable tumble for one of the wide receivers, somehow one of the quarterbacks, whatever it might be, Joe Alt, like whatever. For me, Dallas Turner would very likely be the best player on the board if he's on the board when the New Orleans Saints select at pick 14. Why? One thing that I look at is the void that he fills. I think that the Saints learned something with Caden Ellis. They learned something with Zach Bond, that it makes a lot of sense to have speed off the edge. Now, they brought some of that in with Chase Young, but is Chase Young a longer-term situation? No, he's on a 1-year deal. He's effectively on a game-to-game deal, if you really think about it, right? Because his entire contract, $8 million of the $13 million on his 1-year deal, is all based on whether or not he plays throughout the season. And so, or on a per game basis, bonuses, right? And so I don't know that you can look at Chase Young as a long-term option yet. Now, if he has a great time in New Orleans and has a great, year there and then decides that he wants to stick around here, then sure. But then you still have to be ready for the eventual departure of Cam Jordan. So bring in somebody that brings you something that you don't have, and that's 4.4 speed on the defensive line. And that's where I think a guy like Dallas Turner, who fits the prototype of Caden Ellis, who fits the prototype of a Zach Bond type, that can come in and just wreck shop for you constantly and help you against those pesky mobile quarterbacks that are always causing you trouble and all those other things. So for me, the number one guy for me that's going to potentially be on the board or that could realistically be on the board for the New Orleans Saints is Dallas Turner. So that's my number one guy, Dallas Turner, the edge rusher out of Alabama. He's numero uno for me. He would come in at 6'2", 247 pounds. He is Dane Brugler's number one edge rusher in this year's class. So if he's there, it makes perfect sense. Number two for me is, of course, Olu Fashanu, the offensive tackle out of Penn State. Now, for me, Olu Fashanu is a guy that creates some intrigue for you if you were to draft him as the New Orleans Saints, because he is a pure left tackle, the number two offensive tackle on our good friend Dane Brugler's board. Now, the tricky part with him is that if you're drafting him at left tackle, or if you're drafting him, you're effectively playing him at left tackle. Now, you can let him play out at right tackle if you want to. You could do that. If Trevor Penning, shows up and looks really good and you're ready to roll with him and he's ready to roll in the new offensive system that might cater really well towards Trevor Penning, but Ryan Ramczyk isn't ready to go, then maybe that's where Olu Fashanu can start. But look, he's played 29 career collegiate games during his time over at Penn State, and all of them were at left tackle. So you're in the same situation with an Olu Fashanu as you are with a Trevor Penning, right? He plays left tackle. He's set at left tackle. That's probably where you're going to play him. Now, if you want to be prepared for Trevor Penning to be ready to go at left tackle, right? Which is kind of best case scenario for New Orleans, right? It's a first round pick that you invested a couple years ago. Best case scenario is that he works great in this new offense and works out at left tackle. That would bring me to the number three guy on this list, which is Washington offensive lineman Troy Fautanu. Now, Fautanu is my good friend Kyle Crabb's number two corner on his board. He's a huge fan of Troy Fautanu. Now, he comes in at sub 6'4", which might make you think he can't play left tackle, but he can. 34 and a quarter inch arms. He's got the length to be able to do it. He's got everything that he needs to be able to pull that off. And then here's the thing. Let's say that he doesn't end up winning that left tackle spot because Trevor Penning looks really good at left tackle. Well, then Fautanu can play at left guard. Fautanu could potentially play at right tackle if he needed him to, right? As long as you give him the offseason to adjust to that, because he has that multi-positional versatility, which allows you to maximize your five best on your offensive line. So if you're able to build an offensive line of a Trevor Penning that's ready to go, a Troy Fautanu at left guard, an Eric McCoy at center, a Cesar Ruiz at right guard, and then a Ryan Ramczyk at the top of the season at right tackle, if he's ready to go, you're in a pretty good spot. You feel pretty good about that. Or you swap Fautanu and Penning if you feel like you can put him in at guard. You move, or one of those guys plays at right tackle because Ryan Ramczyk's not ready, or you draft another tackle because the draft is more than one round that you could potentially have at right tackle. Lots of options for New Orleans. And Fautanu would just take those options and multiply them effectively because he would give you somebody that you can move where you need somebody. And he changes the way that you call plays because he's nimble on his feet. He's athletic as all get out. He's got fantastic footwork. He would be a fantastic fit in this new offensive scheme for the New Orleans Saints. I did not have any wide receivers on the list here, but I still want to talk wide receiver because it's their other big need. So let's take a look at the three top wide receivers that fit the mold in terms of what the New Orleans Saints need and want with their new offensive system. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. I grew up a humongous Monopoly fan, and because of it, I have a lot of competitive spirit. It's why I love sports. It's why I love football. It's why I love Monopoly, because it gets that competitive side going. And it's gotten the competitive side also going for over 150 million people. And if you're not in that number already, you need to be, because it's going to give you access to all of the different types, hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations where you can build up amazing cities that are going to end up bringing you big money. I absolutely love playing Monopoly Go. I particularly enjoy, of course, charging rent on some of those iconic properties, and of course, heisting some banks to bring all those riches to myself that my friends and family have worked so hard to get. Ha 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 ha. I get to laugh at them in the group chat. It's so much fun. And it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can also team up with your friends and people all around the world, including me if you want to, for time tournaments and huge rewards. So get into the game right now with all of your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, family, along with those offensive linemen at the top of the NFL draft, there are also some big-time wide receivers toward the middle of this year's draft that are perfect fits for what the New Orleans Saints need, want, and should do with their offense going into 2024. Let's break down my top 3. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here and for making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget, the Locked On NFL mock draft is now live. I'm going to do another episode on Friday tomorrow, kind of as a continuation of my big success over on the mock draft. I call it success. We'll see what you have to say about it, but make sure you go and check it out. You can find the first episode wherein I make a selection at pick 14 here on Locked On Saints now, should be available as you're listening to this. And then you're also able to find the entire special over at Locked On NFL, Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Scouting, and Peacock and Williams. And we put it in so many places for you just to make sure that you can find it. So make sure you go and check out the entire 6-episode special, which I worked really hard on. So I hope everybody enjoys it. Okay, so let's take a look now at the top 3 wide receivers for the New Orleans Saints, in my opinion. And of course, I want your top 3s as well, so please feel free to send. But the top 3 NFL draft prospect wide receivers in this year's draft that fit with the New Orleans Saints can be doing, want to do, and should be doing with their new offense. Let's go to number 1. You know the name, you love him. Malachi Corley, the wide receiver out of Western Kentucky University. A second or third round guy. If the Saints took him at 45, I'd be very happy with it. If they traded up and took him at, 80 something, I'd be very happy with it. Does not matter. Anywhere between 40 to 100. A guy like Malachi Corley deserves to be drafted. 5'10", 207 pounds, 4.56 40. So not a blazer in terms of what you're looking at there, but that don't matter none. That's not what this is all about. This is a guy that is just a yards after catch machine. I guess is the best way that I can think to say it. Look, my friends Marcus Mosher and Kate Majuk over at Locked On Dynasty Football did a whole breakdown of Malachi Corley as like a fantasy football option, depending upon where he ends up. And they talk about him as a Deebo Samuel fit. They talk about him as the Yak King. He does a lot of good stuff with the ball in his hands. Extremely nuanced with the ball in his hands. Probably has to learn a little bit more of the nuances before the ball's in his hands. But hey, when you got a wide receiver coach like Coach Dub, Coach Keith Williams, you're good with that. You're good with that. And so I really like the idea of what it is that a Malachi Corley can bring, if nothing else but for the yards after catch stuff. Andrew Janocko, the New Orleans Saints' new quarterback coach, is one of the best coaches in the league at the position when it comes to coaching the quick passing game. Expect the quick passing game. And a guy like Malachi Corley who can turn a 7-yard slant into a 63-yard touchdown, that's what you want. That's the type of guy that you want on your offense. That's the type of guy that Malachi Corley is. So he is number 1 on my list for the best fit wide receivers in this year's class in this New Orleans Saints new scheme. He's also a willing blocker as well, which certainly helps out a ton. Let's get to number 2, another guy that I have been gushing about on this podcast since really before the NFL draft process even began. It's South Carolina wide receiver Xavier Legette, 6'1", 221 pounds. Better right now with the ball in his hands than Deebo Samuel was with the ball in his hands coming out of South Carolina. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying Legette is better than Deebo Samuel with the ball in his hands now. Deebo Samuel grew big time in that role. But right now, Xavier Legette is better with the ball in his hands at this moment than Deebo Samuel was at this moment years ago when he was drafted, right? In the draft process, coming into the NFL. Needs to not have another motorcycle accident. That would be good to see. Glad he's okay. He missed 2 games a few years ago with that. Kick return. Has played 53 total games in his career. So durable aside from the motorcycle incident there. Put together a 1,200 plus yard season last year as a receiver with 7 receiving touchdowns. Other than that, not a ton of wear and tear on the body. That's good news. That's something that you absolutely love and something that you really, really like. Developing a little bit more as a route runner, it'll get there. But for me, the thing that makes him special is similar to what makes Malachi Corley special: yards after catch, what he can do with the ball in his hands. At 6'1", 227 pounds, Xavier Legette is not a finesse guy all the time. He's not somebody that's going to be juking your shoes off like a human joystick, like a Dante Hall or something like that. He's not that kind of guy. He's going to run through you. That's his game. He runs through linebackers. He runs through safeties. He runs through corners to pick up that additional yardage. So while Malachi Corley is a guy that would play almost exclusively, I say almost exclusively because you'd want to be a movement player with him, move him around, deploy him out of the backfield, move him around, do all the interesting stuff with him. Xavier Legette's a guy you can start on the outside that complements a Chris Olave, that complements a Rashid Shaheed, that would bounce in to the slot. Then you would have another big guy on the outside that does like to block, can block, is a willing blocker. And then you can get one of those big slot guys into the slot, Chris Olave on the outside, all these other like fun things on the offensive side in terms of scheming up those wide receivers, and get the ball into the hands of Xavier Legette and just let him work. And position-wise, he complements because he can be an X-receiver at the next level. I very much believe that. I very much believe he can be an X-receiver at the next level. So he gives you both. He gives you the X-receiver, which you're still looking for. Could be A.T. Perry, but you want to bring in more talent, right? You want to be right on more than one guy, not just one. You want to be right on as many guys as possible. And then gives you the yards after catch ability as well without having to be in the slot, but you can move him into the slot. But we know how important the blocking is, especially in a wide zone offense. You want to expand that offensive line as far laterally as possible. And of course, you want to also be able to get a guy in that can do, that can block in you take out those slot corners that are there specifically to help you tackle and all those other things. You can do a whole bunch of different things with him. Okay, let's go to another guy that I actually really like and that I've never talked about on the show before. Jermaine Burton. 6 foot, 196 pounds. Has taken a ton of snaps on the outside. He's one of the few outside receivers in this year's draft. He's got good vertical leaping ability with a 38.5-inch vertical with an 11-foot 1-inch broad jump. So you know the explosion is there. 4.45 speed with good size. So let's say it together. Height, weight, speed, right? Checks all those boxes. And led Alabama last year in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Only missed one game. Led the team, Alabama, the year before that in receiving yards as well. Has played a total of 50 games in the league. Had 798 receiving yards last year, 8 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns the year before that. So even though he wasn't a prime option in that Alabama offense, he was still finding the end zone and he was still putting up good averages. 18 yards per catch on his career, but 20.5 last year per catch in 2023. So why is he a good fit? Well, he's a good fit because he's the type of guy that has the speed where if you get the ball in his hands in the open field, he's going to take it and he's going to go. He can push things vertically. Incredible ball skills with big old hands, okay? Big old hands. We're talking 10-inch hands. So this guy has a little bit of, I'm going to cower when I say this, but man, he's got some of that Michael Thomas in him. I don't mean to say it to put like the biggest expectations on him in the world or anything like that. Like I'm being very liberal with that phrase, right? But you get what I'm saying. Like he's got the big hands. He has the route running ability. He has that contested catch ability. He is somebody that will fight for the ball, that has the attitude, fearless and all that as well. Loves to work towards the sideline and over the middle. And that's something that the New Orleans Saints absolutely need, is a greater focus to the middle, attacking the middle of the field in the passing game. So Jermaine Burton, man, one of these guys that I really, really, really like because he's got the athleticism, he's got the ball skills, all of that stuff. Second, third, fourth round kind of guy. If you wanted to trade up from fifth, that's what I think. He's one of these going to be better in the league than he was in college type of players, Jermaine Burton. So that gives you Malachi Corley, Xavier Legette, Jermaine Burton. Those are my top 3 wide receivers to fit for this New Orleans Saints team, just in terms of fit within the system. There are other early wide receivers that obviously, if the right guy falls, you got to take him, right? Rome Odunze falls where you can get in the striking distance you want to do it. Obviously, he's a fit, right? But we're just talking about some of those other like lesser discussed guys. All right, coming up next, we're going to do the same Over in the offensive line, behind Olu Fashanu, behind Troy Fautanu, who were the best offensive line fits later on in the draft, and one alternative in the first round. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints is brought to you by our friends at Yahoo Finance. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all, right? You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can, and now you need to make sure you're taking those investments to the next level by using what every financial great is using, Yahoo Finance. I'm just now starting to get into the idea of like investments and stuff like that. I was very uncomfortable with it, but boy, has Yahoo Finance really changed the game for me. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand that has been trusted by all of the great investors, and now I found out I can trust them too, because whether you're a seasoned investor or somebody like me that's just now getting started, you're going to be able to get the guidance that you need from Yahoo Finance. They're going to give you all the tools and data that you're looking for all in one place. And hey, look, with a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you find your way to financial success. They've helped me. Hopefully they can help you out too. So for comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand that every financial great investor trusts, yahoofinance.com. And it's again, that number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That is yahoofinance.com. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Penn State's Olu Fashanu could be the best offensive tackle on the board for the New Orleans Saints at 14. Troy Fautanu out of Washington could be the best fit on the board at 14. But what about the guys after that? I got my next top 3 O-line that you should be taking a look at all throughout the draft. So we're going to actually hit beyond the first round here, but we are going to get a first round alternative behind Fautanu and Fashanu as well here in just a sec. So I appreciate you very much, as always, for being here. Don't forget, we are your team every day. Coming up tomorrow, the Locked On NFL mock draft will have already been released for a full over 24 hours. So I'm going to continue that mock draft to wrap up the week here on our Friday episode of Locked On Saints. We already got one selection out publicly right now. That is Troy Fautanu, the offensive lineman out of Washington. Fashanu was gone at pick 10. So what do I do next? Well, let's wait and see if I'm done cooking for this evening, and then we'll get into what I'm going to do. So I'm going to wait until Friday, and then we're going to continue and wrap up that 7-round mock draft to bring you the rest of it. Okay, so we know that Olu Fashanu is going to be kind of the best possible player on the board at 14 for the New Orleans Saints when it comes to offensive linemen. In the event that he's gone, in the event that Troy Fautanu is also gone, who would be the best fit scheme-wise for the New Orleans Saints and versatility-wise, right? Effectively five position versatility on that guy. I want to look at another potential first-round selection, and it's the rule of Fs. We've talked about it once before here on the show, but there is a rule of Fs for me when it comes to the first round of this year's NFL draft. I call it the F'd up rule. Whichever one of them is up, that's who you take. And I'm talking about the Fs as in the last names. Fashanu, Fautanu, and Taliese Fuaga out of Oregon State. He's my next best fit for the New Orleans Saints at the offensive line. Why? He's got left tackle, right tackle versatility. He has experience playing in an offense that the New Orleans Saints and in a program with the program at Oregon State that the New Orleans Saints have drafted from quite a bit. Most recently, of course, Brandon Cooks. He's just one of these dudes that just has all of it and has the temperament that you just love to see on the field. He is an absolute road grader, an absolute mauler. And the fact that he can play at left tackle and right tackle gives the same type of flexibility to the New Orleans Saints to pick out their best 5 offensive linemen that Fautanu does without the interior offensive line versatility. Although you could potentially ask him to play there. So there are ways for the New Orleans Saints to go in that case. For me, when it comes to Fuaga, who is Dane Brugler's number 4 tackle, 6'5", 324 pounds, comes in with good athleticism, comes in with great size, comes in with really, really stout experience as well, 39 games worth of experience over there with Oregon State, including a redshirt season that he had where he only played 4 games his freshman year. He is one of those players that's imperfect, but he is so perfectly imperfect that you can deal with it. Like his the things that he has to get better at are so minor. They're so small. They're these little tiny things. And some of it comes down to arm length. 33 and 1/8 inch arms maybe is why I don't put him above Fautanu, because he doesn't have the arm length to play tackle, quote unquote, by the NFL. But look, we've seen guys like Taylor Decker be able to pull it off before with just fine in terms of arm length and all that. So I don't want to overdo that, but it is something that makes me put Fautanu up over Fuaga, which is why I came down to him. He gets upright a little bit too much, and that gives up leverage. You want to stay low and all those other things. But really, like, outside of that, like, this guy's really, really good. And at 6'5", 324, he can move. He would fit in the system, all those other things, especially playing in the Pac-12. And he's a team captain, which we know the New Orleans Saints have shown that they really like here recently, is guys that kind of hold that patch. And so he's a leader. He's a very good offensive lineman, just as good in the run game as he is in the passing game, just as good in scheme versus scheme, where you're talking man or zone and all those other things. I dig it. I dig it. So I'm all about Taliese Fuaga as a guy that could be the selection for the New Orleans Saints at 14. Let's go deeper in the draft. We'll go into day 2, potentially early day 3. Let's talk about Hunter Nourzad, the offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman out of Penn State. Now, you're going to notice that there's a lot of these Penn State guys that I really like. Well, there's a reason for that. It's because they coach them well, right? I mean, if you're going to be a team that produces good offensive linemen, you might as well be a team in the Big Ten that loves to run the football and needs those really good offensive linemen, right? So it makes perfect sense. 6'3", 317 pounds, has the same arm length as Taliese Fuaga, 33 and 1/8 inches, but he's still a guy that I would put on the interior. I kind of feel that about Fuaga too, if I'm being honest. The only thing with Nourzad is the health, the medicals, things like that. But it's aided. I mean, he played 9 games last year, played 13 games the year before that. And it was multiple injuries last year, which I think is the scary part. So the medicals part of it is something you have to make sure you're comfortable with. But I think this is a guy that's going to be a starter for a long time on the interior. And remember, the Saints still have to answer that question. Who is their starting left guard? And if they don't go Fautanu early, but then they go Fuaga early or Fashanu early, then a guy like Nourzad could potentially make sense to help plug in to the interior to help you out there. So I'm all about it. And the other thing that I just love about him is that he is ridiculously athletic. Ridiculously athletic. Plays through players and all that. Like, throws them out of the club. Like, becomes very, very, like, once he gets his hands on a defender, he's not letting go until you're either in the dirt or you're out of the play. And I love that attitude. I love that attitude a lot. Without drawing penalties and things like that, of course. He does a very good job of that. Lastly, day 3, round 5, round 6 kind of guy. Let's talk Javon Foster out of Missouri. Javon Foster is a scheme fit. Why? Because he literally runs the same scheme, or ran the same scheme, that the New Orleans Saints are trying to deploy in New Orleans. That's what he helped to run over in Missouri, blocking for a 1,600-yard season by Cody Schrader. Also has left tackle, right tackle versatility. So let's say that the New Orleans Saints decide, okay, we're going to go Olu Fashanu because he's available early, or Taliese Fuaga because he's available early, but then they want to get somebody else that can come in and compete on either side of the offensive line that those guys aren't. Here's Javon Foster. Yeah, he's going to be a 4th, 5th, 6th round selection, but that doesn't mean that he can't win a starting role, especially with all of the experience that he has at the position. And with 34 and 5/8 inch arms, he has the length. At 6'5", 311 pounds, he has the size. He's got it all. And with his, let me see, I don't think he ran a 40, but he did run a short shuttle of sub 5 seconds, which is really good. So I love the athleticism. I love all that. I think the biggest thing for him is going to be technique, but if you get him in with John Benton, who is a veteran coaching these offensive linemen, then I think that there's a real potential there, because boy, size, strength, the ability to be able to move, the athleticism that he has all of it. He's going to be a little bit developmental, but that's okay when you're a 5th round guy. It's different when you're a 1st round guy. So if you get one of those guys that fits at just one place in the 1st round, or just 2 places in the 1st round, and you want to make sure you get another option that could potentially compete over on either side of the tackle spots, Javon Foster out of Missouri is a fantastic fit for the New Orleans Saints, scheme-wise, athletics-wise, all of it. You want a good offensive line, draft athletes. Javon Foster is a freaking athlete. And he adds to our rule of Fs as well. So we can call it Fashanu, Fautanu, Fuaga, and Foster. And I'm all about it. And Hunter Forzad. I wish that was his name. It's Norzad, but it would be cool if it all fit under the F motif there. All right, y'all. There you go. Top 3 at round 1, or at pick 14. Top 3 wideouts in terms of fit. Top 3 O-line in terms of fit behind the big guys. There you go. We're ready for an NFL draft, aren't we? One more week, and we're going to be here breaking it down, getting you ready as we go through tomorrow's episode, another 7-round mock draft, building off of the 2 selections that I will have made in the first round. If you didn't catch those selections, make sure you head over and check out the Locked On NFL mock draft, Locked On NFL, Locked On NFL draft, Peacock and Williamson, and Locked On NFL Scouting. You can find all 6 episodes there. Sounds like you might hear from me more than once. All right, y'all. Appreciate you very much making us your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, Locked On LSU, Locked On Pelicans. Make sure you go and support the rest of Locked On Louisiana. Appreciate you very much as always. Making Locked On Saints a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.